So with Nintendo's big Switch 2 debut finally confirming my precious purple lunchbox is making a comeback, the days of the N64 being the best console on NSO are coming to an end. But before XD and Coliseum come down and blow out the Stadium games completely, I figured I'd take a look at what sets them apart from those two titles and rank all 21 Pokemon Stadium Minigames by whatever silly little arbitrary metric I come up with, really. Now, though this is a topic that can give some of the lesser-loved Pocket Pets a little time to shine, I'm afraid I'm still gonna have to keep Drowsy locked deep down there in the dead tier where it belongs, cause I swear to you, before I had to go and get footage for this video, I never even once managed to come out on top in this little Sandman squabble of theirs. Not putting it here because I'm a sore loser or anything, I think my brain is just coded to just say nay to this thing, even if it comes at the cost of losing a round, cause no Everstone in Gen 1 means this Drowsy's just gotta be living a zero experience lifestyle. The more losses Drowsy gets, the more innocent 10-year-olds I save by keeping it from evolving into a complete nonce to society someday. So I guess I gotta give Game Freak and the Pokemon Company credit where it's due. They clearly saw a lot more in this Magikarp jumping concept than I ever could. Took the canonically weakest fish on the market and somehow managed to make it into a full mobile game with 33 Alcremie colors to call its own. That's a big basket of carp right there for something so simple. But I do like the wee fish, so I can't say that it doesn't deserve the attention it's getting, besides just being a baby Gyarados. But as is with the minigame that we've got here, I'm afraid it's a bit too skin and bones for my liking to justify putting it up any higher than this. Now, Sandshrew has always been one of the cutest pets in the Pokédex, so I'm not really happy to see it get the short end of the stick like this. Poor things have it bad enough digging up something that's been well documented to cause them bodily harm. But then they had to go and make it the shortest minigame out of them, too. Had to replay this like 3 separate times just to get the footage to even say this stuff about it in the first place. That's 3 more innocent Sandshrews coming out a winner on paper, but are unfortunately a little too comatose to actually reap any of the rewards for all that effort. No wonder some of them packed up and headed to Hawaii after this. They try the same trick on the new and improved Sandshrew, and it'll rip your tongue off like a frosty flagpole. Normally, Rattata and Togepi would go about as hand-in-hand as Red with speaking full sentences, but at least as far as their minigames go, I think they have enough in common here that it feels safe enough lumping them both together this time. I'd say Togepi just barely manages to come out on top of the two for having a more visual variety going on with it, but I do like that you have to keep the Rattata running in its game while also managing the jumps along the way, cause it helps to keep me a little more engaged. This is probably the most attention I'd put on this evolution line since giving Gary's Raticate a fatal thrashing on the SSN. It's no real wonder why every single power plant in this series always tends to end up abandoned. Seems to me like as soon as you set one up, all these little red-cheeked rats start coming out of the woodwork to see who amongst them gets to be the superior Pika Pal and who's getting sentenced to the electric chair. But make no mistake here, it's no contest at all. Pichu may have the advantage of getting to juice things up in different directions, but it's still over in a flash, while the main mon himself has this little color gimmick that'll flick on and off like Nosferatu at the Krusty Krab. Clicking the wrong color will quickly drain whatever charge you have built up, so it's safe to say that this one wins automatically for not being quite so brainless, but I do gotta give special mention as well to the Voltorb that managed to spark me out once while I was recording. Never even came close to losing in the second stadium, so I can appreciate the competition here. Put her there, you big baller. Considering it has all those evolutions, I honestly think Eevee arguably has the most potential to take a minigame about it in a ton of different directions, but if you're gonna keep it in the base form, then I suppose frolicking around for fruit in a basket isn't a bad play. That said, I think it definitely would have benefited for having a little more time added to it. 5 rounds of fast food just isn't a lot to work with for this sort of thing. Apom strikes me as the type that gets a good laugh out of leaving explosive ordnance around for your face to find. Given more than one Pineco per match, we'd be well on our way to discovering that long-lost ghost-type Eevee. Feels like Furret really has it rough in this franchise. Skipped over any regional form or any major fights in this series, outside of maybe, I don't know, Kale from Coliseum, but I always thought this little 4-way FIFA game was at least something that it could call its own, only to later learn that even its namesake isn't safe from Game Freak's anti-Furret fetish. Could just get a Girafarig to bump your beach balls instead by bringing one over from Gold and Silver. But if you lack the means to make that happen like I did, then this is the one and only time that this gets to be something special, unless Gen 10 makes it into a White Weasel form, or Fire Ferret Furret, of course. Much as I like the minigame, think I gotta call these Chansey's credentials as healthcare providers into question here. Don't let them fool you into thinking they're catching these eggs to keep them cozy or anything like that. The winner still sentences the ones they saved to a watery grave. And when you're a Pokemon that can produce eggs that can cure the clinically depressed, that's hundreds of people's happiness that you're just casually dumping down the drain. Need to be sent back to school. Need to hit the books. If these Chansey had just done their duty properly, maybe Cyrus wouldn't have felt the need to reset the universe just to feel something. Until Galar graced us with both the best and worst things to happen to Mr. Mime, this is probably where it all peaked. Not saying Mime Jr. was a bad crack at it or anything, I just don't like the uncomfortable connotations of Senior Mime somehow carrying on a bloodline. Luckily, this is a good enough game that I can let it back into my good graces, but definitely think it could have leaned a little more into the whole Magic Mime gimmick than this. Crash Bash's version could either bounce or grab hold of the balls to reshoot your shot, and just looking at him, I would have figured Mr. Mime would be the type to have a better grip on the balls than what it gives us here, but I don't know, maybe that's leaning more to Galarian Mime's specialty more than anything, for completely harmless reasons, of course. Surprisingly enough, I've always been a big fan of Clefairy, so I can honestly say I like this one quite a bit. But sad that even in a video game that I'm willingly playing, it seems I just lack the mental faculties to ever pay proper attention to the teacher. My attention span and memory just aren't built for that sort of thing. Ask me to tell you the entire plot to the Metal Gear games and I'm your man, but ask me to repeat something like this to you after only a quick glance and odds are I'm getting sentenced to the bop it. My Clefairy would be the one kept in the corner with a dunce cap permanently welded to its forehead like a unicorn. I know it's certainly easier now that I'm not a smooth-brained child, but I'm still not confident enough to say when I win that it wasn't some sort of fluke, it was just the luck of the metronome draw. Before Heracross came in to become the new Beetle Basher, Stadium 2 gave Scyther and Pinsir one last crack at their little rivalry before it went on to bigger and shinier things evolving into Scizor. But like with Furret getting the Girafarig, apparently it's possible to play this with a Scizor if you actually sent one over from Gold and Silver, and I can't help but wonder what might have changed for me had I known that at the time. I know whichever Pokemon's chopping the trees should just be purely aesthetic, but for some reason my eyes just always get glitched whenever I'm stuck playing as Pinsir instead of Scyther. Don't know why that is, but the results definitely speak for themselves. Seems I'm just not built to handle any wood with my head. Might explain why my wife was so much better at it than I was, though.
What was that?
Oh, nothing. Don't see it as a coincidence that Team Rocket Seconds evolved in the Diglett episode of the anime. Turns out, the backward snake species always does its best work when the little molemen are involved. Baby Ouroboros all flinging themselves to try to land a ring around these little soil sausages for points can be a bit awkward to control at times, but given that it still lives rent-free in my head to this day, in spite of Ekans blasting off into obscurity, the only way a Diglett is ever surpassing this iconic memory for me is if we finally get to see what it's hiding underneath. Now this here is a good and proper Hitmontop. Back before all the modern games came in and completely ruined its entire claim to fame by making it dance all day, it just got to be a sentient Beyblade, smacking itself into other tops to rip and tear them right out of the ring, either to reach the first of 5 points or survive until time runs out. Bit of a missed opportunity not letting it go on for longer if you ask me. Thanks to those charged up spin dashes keeping those dreidels drifting, it's not gonna be a bumper ball situation where two are gonna tie every time. But even sticking to just what we got, I still think, with absolutely no pun intended here whatsoever, that this is a top tier minigame. By far the greatest glow up from its stunted source material, now finally a Metapod and Kakuna have a real leg to stand on against all these titans of their franchise. While Pikachu can barely take an apple to its melon, these two bug bros are walking tall, breaking boulders with their brains. Has a nice little risk versus reward to it on whether taking the safe route and getting hard early at the cost of more health, or being risky whipping it out at the last possible second is the proper play to make. And unlike before, I'm not really picky about who's the better bug between them this time. Even though it's kind of obvious though, any Kakuna whose round dome can outcrack that Metapod head spike deserves to not only have its hands back, but become a Beedrill that's permanently megaed up at birth. Just want to start this one off by saying that I know this is incredibly situational. If you're only playing against the computers, then the game's gonna hold your hand with that gorilla grip, and if that's all it was, they'd be lucky to be keeping the monkey company halfway back in the video. But once you start to play this with another person and it suddenly realizes you might have some sentience to you, then it'll let you play for real. Turns things from an episode of Dora the Explorer to something that'll actually swerve you somewhat. Always gets a good laugh out of me seeing the one smooth brain Igglybuff button mashing by the end of it. But don't think I'm selling them short now, they just got a skill set meant for scrapping, that's all. That's why the Clefairies are in the classroom while the Jigglypuffs are off making millions taking falcon punches to the face. Looking at first glance, I honestly couldn't believe Crobat didn't make it into the minigame all about collecting hearts. Seems like it would have been a no-brainer for a friendship evolution to be a part of. But the more I thought about it, once a Crobat sees where those hearts are actually spawning from, it likely would have chosen just to devolve itself back into a Golbat out of pure contempt to you. So maybe it was the better play to make there, but as a minigame and not a dating sim, I think it's still actually a pretty good time. I like that there's some strategy, picking between flying at the front or hanging in the back and grabbing whatever the other Golbat drop. Maybe a bit of both, but one thing is for sure, just like with the Sandshrew, I'd say the real winners here are actually the losers that don't martyr themselves in this scenario. Donphan has always been a sort of pseudo-mascot of Gold and Silver to me ever since making its surprise guest appearance in the first movie. It may not be a box art or starter tier level mon, can't even realistically call it the best racing elephant on the N64, but in the Pokemon world, few are more fitting for a race like this than a pachyderm that can pack you in by tucking into a tire. That ground typing it's got is handmade for a minigame where kicking sand in someone's face is considered fair game. The more down on your odds, the more dust devils you can drop to sweep them off their feet, definitely make it for a minigame worthy of the upper bracket. If this were the real world, it'd still probably be the one I would enjoy the most if ever given the option. Who wouldn't want to take their pet tire out for a good roll around the ranch? I know in general the body part Pokemon don't get a lot of love from fans, but anyone who lumps in the sentient tongue with that group clearly hasn't spent much time on this minigame like I have. Quickly deciding between maxing out the multiplier or piling up the plates as quick as you can became just as addicting to me as they were for the big man eating them. And unlike Mr. Mime, poor Lickitung sadly never got something to surpass this moment for its species. Given the complete genetic downgrade we were given in Licky Licky, it never stood a chance to be the best. But back when those beta forms were leaked for the Gen 2 evolution straight out of Final Fantasy IX, my brain instantly jumped to what could have been. Thought that steady diet of slurping sushi had started to make its way into the main game. Looks all set for a little chef to come in and take the helm to serve us up some fresh tatsugiri. In almost any kind of conversation, Delibird doesn't get so much as a second look from most people, and with stats like that, I can certainly see why. But just like the dodgy gifts it likes to give out, every once in a while it likes to surprise you with something nice. And back in the day, when Christmas shopping on Black Friday was a bloodbath of near biblical proportions, this fragile little bird was on the front lines stuffing its sack full of gifts for all the good girls and boys. But just like Lickitung, deciding between the big multipliers on the easy money items or waiting to bag up all the biggins is my kind of risk versus reward. Just gotta watch the weight of the bag to make sure you're not getting sideswiped by a Swinub while you're dragging the dolls and diamond rings over to box up for the belt. Gotta say the big man made the right call getting rid of holiday hijinks. This little penguin is truly the gift that keeps on giving. Definitely deserves to be the best of the best. I know if I were given the booking power for making more mobile games like Magikarps, first thing I'm doing is bringing Delibird back better than ever. Call it Iron Bundles Devil's Black Eye Friday, because we'd be leaving that mall looking like the day after tomorrow was yesterday.